Meditation in daily life, the wonderful secret of meditation. Welcome back, everyone, to Mind Podcast. Mindfulness is a translation of the Pali word, sati. Sati is a specific activity. What is its exact meaning? There is no definite answer, especially in terms of language. Words are invented at the symbolic level of the mind and are used to describe phenomena through thought and symbolic representation. Mindfulness is the state before symbols form. It is not bound by reasoning. However, mindfulness can be experienced relatively easily and can be described as long as you remember that words are like fingers pointing to the moon, not the moon itself. The true experience lies far beyond words and symbols. Mindfulness can be described in various ways, forms, and styles different from those used here, and still be entirely accurate. Mindfulness is a subtle process that you are using in the present moment. In reality, this process goes far beyond words but does not make it any less practical. On the contrary, mindfulness is the truth expressed in words, where words are often just a faint shadow of the truth. Therefore, it is very important to understand that everything discussed here is just an analogy, an attempt to express something beyond the realm of verbal reasoning. It can only be experienced. The practice of vipassana meditation, introduced by the Buddha 25 centuries ago, is a system for psychological activity, a method specifically designed to counteract the discontinuity of mindfulness. When you begin to pay attention to something, there's a moment of pure awareness that arises, a moment just before conceptualization occurs to identify the event. This is the moment of mindfulness. Usually this moment is very brief, just a blink of an eye when you focus on something. Concentrate the mind on an object just before you concretize it, anchor it in the present mind, and isolate it from everything else. It happens just before you think about it, before your mind says, "Oh, it's a dog." That instant of pure attention is mindfulness. In that fleeting moment, you experience an object as non-object, feeling a subtle flow of energy in the instant of pure experience that connects with all of reality without any separation. Mindfulness is very much like what you see with peripheral vision, in contrast to normal, focused subjective vision. But in that tiny, unfocused moment, attention includes a profound wisdom that is lost when you focus your mind and concretize the object. In the relative cognitive process, each stage of mindfulness shifts so quickly that it is impossible to observe. We are accustomed to wasting our attention on later stages, focusing on concepts, identifying concepts, naming them, and most of all, binding them within the mental continuum, generating thoughts about them. That initial moment of mindfulness has already disappeared before you realize it. The purpose of vipassana meditation is to train us to extend that period of awareness. When mindfulness is sustained through correct practice, you find that this experience is profoundly deep and changes your entire worldview. This state of awareness must be learned, but even more importantly, it must be practiced regularly and persistently. Once learned, you will find that mindfulness has many fascinating aspects. Characteristics of mindfulness. Mindfulness is reflective thinking. It reflects what is happening in the present moment exactly as it is, without any bias. Mindfulness is non-judgmental observation. It is the ability of the mind to observe without criticism. With this ability, the practitioner sees things without condemning or judging, without being surprised by anything. The practitioner simply receives an event in the same manner as it is, without deciding, without evaluating, just observing. Please remember that when we say, the individual does not decide or evaluate, it means the meditator observes experiences as a scientist observes an object under a microscope, without any preconceived notions, seeing it just as it is. In this way, the meditator recognizes impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and non-self. Psychologically, it seems impossible to objectively observe what is happening inside if we do not simultaneously accept what is arising in the mind. This is true, especially for unpleasant mental states. To observe our fear, we must acknowledge that we are afraid. We cannot examine our depression until we fully accept it. The same goes for anger, restlessness, boredom, and other unpleasant emotional states. You cannot investigate something if you do not accept its existence. Whatever experience you have, mindfulness simply accepts it. It is just another fact of life, an object to be noticed like anything else. No pride, no shame, no threat. Whatever is there is just there. nothing more. Mindfulness is impartial observation, not taking sides, not being influenced by what is understood. It is just awareness. Mindfulness is not enamored by good mental states and does not try to avoid bad mental states. It does not cling to pleasure or run from discomfort. Mindfulness views all experiences equally, all thoughts, all feelings alike. Mindfulness does not play favorites, does not conceal, does not suppress. Mindfulness is not concept-based awareness. Another term for sati is bare attention. It is not reflection, not engaging with thoughts or concepts, not binding to ideas or memories. Mindfulness simply watches, noticing the experience without comparing it to anything. It does not name or categorize the object, observing everything as if encountering it for the first time, without analysis based on reflection or memory. It is a direct experience of what is happening without the presence of the intermediary of thought. It precedes thought in the formation process of sensation. Mindfulness is present moment awareness, occurring here and now. It is observing what is happening at this very moment, always in the present, constantly changing, like the ever-rolling silver waves of time. If you are remembering your second-grade teacher, that is memory. When you are aware that you are remembering your old teacher, that is mindfulness. If next, you conceptualize the whole process and tell yourself, "Oh, I'm remembering," that is thinking. Mindfulness is selfless awareness. It happens without reference to the ego. Mindful practitioner sees all phenomena without referring to concepts like I, me, or mine. For example, suppose there is pain in your left leg. Normally the mind says, "I am in pain." With mindfulness, the practitioner simply notes the sensation as a feeling without attaching the concept of I. Mindfulness prevents the practitioner from adding any further recognition to the sensation, not emphasizing or intensifying anything. Practitioner just observes exactly what is there, without distortion or alteration. Mindfulness is an infinite awareness. In mindfulness, the practitioner does not exert any effort to achieve a specific result, does not try to accomplish anything. When mindfulness is present, the person is experiencing the truth in the present moment in whatever form it takes. There is nothing to achieve, only to observe. Mindfulness is the awareness of change. It is observing the flowing stream of experience, studying the constantly changing event. Mindfulness is always seeing the arising, growing, and passing away of all phenomena. Mindfulness continuously monitors phenomena moment by moment, observing everything, physical, psychological, or sensory, whatever is currently happening in the mind. Practitioner simply sits quietly, observing the show. Mindfulness is observing the nature of each passing phenomenon, watching how it arises and fades away, seeing how it creates sensations and how we react to it, how it affects other areas. In mindfulness, the practitioner is an objective observer with the sole task of continuously examining the performances of the inner world. Please remember this point. In mindfulness, the practitioner observes the inner universe. A meditator developing mindfulness does not focus on the external universe. It still exists, but during practice, the practitioner's field of study is the experience of their own thoughts, feelings, and perception. In practice, you are your own laboratory. The inner world contains a vast amount of data for reflecting on the outer world and beyond. Examining this data leads to liberation. Mindfulness is immersion in observation. The meditator is both a participant and an observer at the same time. Practitioner watches their emotions or physiological sensations, simultaneously knowing them at the same time. Mindfulness is not intellectual awareness, but simple awareness. The metaphor of reflective thinking cannot be used in this case. Mindfulness is objective, but it does not mean it is cold or indifferent. It is the awakened experience of life, a sensitive immersion in the ever-changing process of life. If you want to use language to describe mindfulness, it is an extremely difficult task, not because it is complex, but because it is so simple and vast. This challenge is similar to other areas of human experience. The most fundamental things are always the hardest to grasp. Look in a dictionary, and you will see a typical example. Long words often have concise definitions, while basic, short words like the and is have definitions that span many pages. In physics, the most difficult functions always describe the most fundamental things, like the basic quantum mechanical systems. Mindfulness is a function that occurs before symbols form. You can play with symbols and words all your life, but you will never fully understand them. We will never be able to fully articulate what it is, but we can describe what it does. The 3 basic activities. Mindfulness has 3 basic activities. We can use these activities as practical definitions for each statement. A. Mindfulness reminds us of what we should be focusing on at the moment. B. Mindfulness sees things as they are. C. Mindfulness looks deeply into the nature of all phenomena. Let's go into more detail about these definitions. A. Mindfulness reminds us of what we should be focusing on at the moment. In meditation, you place your attention on an object. When the mind drifts away from this anchor, mindfulness reminds you that your mind is wandering and what you need to be doing at that moment. Mindfulness brings your mind back to the subject. This process happens quickly and without internal dialogue. Mindfulness is not thinking. Repeated practice establishes this function as a psychological habit, and it will follow you for the rest of your life. A serious meditator always has a bare attention to the incident at all times, day after day, whether sitting in meditation or not. This is an ideal goal for those who have been practicing for many years. Habits and thought patterns have developed over many years and have become entrenched in our behavior. The only way is to cultivate continuous, persistent mindfulness over an equally long period. Only when mindfulness is present do you realize the moment you are caught in a mental pattern. Only when you recognize it can you pull yourself out of the process. Mindfulness brings your attention back to the correct focus. If you are sitting in meditation, your focus will be the meditation object. If you are not in a meditation session, mindfulness will simply apply attention to itself, simply being aware of what arises without attachment. This arises, and now this, and now. Mindfulness, at the same time, knows to focus attention purely and performs the function of reminding us to focus if it is lost. Pure attention is awareness. Mindfulness reestablishes itself by recognizing that it is absent. As soon as you realize you are not focused, attention returns to you immediately. Mindfulness creates a distinct sense of itself in consciousness. It has a flavor, bright, clear, dynamic. Thought awareness is heavy, coarse, and cumbersome. But again, these are just words. Your own practice will show you the difference. Afterward, you may come up with words to describe it based on your own abundant awareness. Remember, practice is the key. Mindfulness sees things as they are. Mindfulness neither adds to nor subtracts from understanding, nor does it distort anything. Bare attention simply observes what arises. Conceptual thinking overlays experience, burdening us with concepts and ideas, drowning us in the powerful whirlpool of sorrow, anxiety, fear, and imagination. When mindfulness is present, there is no more playing around, only the precise noting of what arises in the mind, then moving on to the next thing. This, then this, and now this. It is very simple. C. Mindfulness looks deeply into the nature of all phenomena. Only mindfulness can recognize the 3 main characteristics that Buddhism teaches about ultimate reality. In the Pali scriptures, these are called impermanence, anicca, suffering, dukkha, and non-self, anatta, the absence of a permanent self. These truths are not presented in the scriptures as dogma, demanding blind faith. Buddhism holds that truth must be universally applicable and evident to anyone who wishes to investigate it in a proper way. Mindfulness is a method of investigation. Mindfulness itself has the power to reveal the truth at its deepest level, available for human observation. At a subtle level of examination, practitioner sees that A. All things exist temporarily and are conditioned. B. Any worldly phenomena will ultimately lead to dissatisfaction. And C. There is no unchanging and permanent entity, only a process. Mindfulness functions like an electron microscope. It works at a fine level, helping humans see the truth directly. These truths are often recognized after being constructed in the realm of theoretical conscious thought. Mindfulness can clearly see the impermanent nature of each perception, observe the temporary and decaying nature of all knowable things, and recognize the inherent dissatisfaction in all conditioned phenomena. From this, the practitioner understands there is no reason to cling to any performance that passes through the mind. Peace and happiness cannot be found this way. Finally, mindfulness reveals that all phenomena are non-self, demonstrating that we always arbitrarily select pieces of perception, then carve them out from the ever-changing stream of experience, and then conceptualize them into events as if they were separate, enduring entities. Mindfulness can see all of this, not just think about it, see it directly. When mindfulness is fully developed, the three characteristics of reality will be seen directly, instantly, without the intervention of conscious thought. In fact, these characteristics are unified and do not truly exist separately. They are simply the result of the struggle in the process of building a foundation for mindfulness and expressing it through the cumbersome, inappropriate symbols of consciousness. Mindfulness is a process, but it does not occur in steps. It is an ontological process, happening as a whole. You notice the lack of mindfulness, and that noticing is itself the result of mindfulness. Mindfulness is bare attention, and bare attention is knowing things exactly as they are, without distortion, and seeing them in the light of ultimate reality, impermanence, suffering, and non-self. All of this happens in a few moments of the mind. But this does not mean that you immediately achieve liberation, freedom from human flaws, but it is only the result of the first moment of mindfulness. Learning how to integrate these insights into your intellectual life is a completely different process. And learning to sustain continuous mindfulness is yet another stage. But these are all exciting and worthwhile processes to strive for. Mindfulness, sati, and vipassana meditation. Mindfulness is the core of vipassana meditation and the key to the entire process. It is both the goal and the means to reach the end. You develop mindfulness by living with attention. Another Pali term used interchangeably with mindfulness is appamada, which means non-negligence or the absence of madness. Those who continuously pay attention to what is really happening in their minds will achieve the highest level of alertness. In Pali, sati also carries the meaning of remembering. It is not memory in the sense of recognizing past ideas and images, but a clear, direct, and wordless knowing of what is and what is not, what is right and what is wrong, about what we are doing and how we should do it. Mindfulness reminds the practitioner to apply attention to the correct object, the right time, and to use the exact amount of energy needed to complete the practice. When this energy is applied correctly, the practitioner can remain steady in a state of calm and alertness. As long as this state exists, psychological obstacles or stimuli cannot arise. There is no greed, anger, desire, or laziness. But we humans often make mistakes, and we often repeat them. Despite sincere efforts, the meditator sometimes lets mindfulness slip away and finds themselves caught up in regret or the failures of human life. It is mindfulness that notices this shift and also reminds the meditator to apply the necessary energy to escape the state of unmindfulness. These slips happen repeatedly, but they will gradually decrease with practice. Once mindfulness pushes aside mental impurities, wholesome states of mind have space to arise. Hatred will be replaced with loving kindness, and letting go will replace desire. Mindfulness recognizes the change and reminds the meditator to maintain mental sharpness, prolong these good states. Mindfulness fosters the growth of wisdom and compassion, without which they cannot fully mature. The deep-seated thought structures in the mind lead us to accept what the mind considers good, pleasant experiences and avoid what it considers bad, unpleasant. This mental structure leads to states that we must train ourselves to avoid, things like greed, craving, hatred, aversion, and envy. We choose to avoid these obstacles, not because they are sins in the eyes of the world, but because they are coercive. They control the mind and take hold of attention entirely. They entangle us in the cycle of thought, separating us from the essence of life. These obstacles cannot arise in the presence of mindfulness. Mindfulness is attention to the truth in the present moment. Therefore, it directly opposes states of mind overwhelmed by obstacles. Only when we let mindfulness slip away does this hidden structure take over, grasping, clinging, and rejecting, so that resistance arises and obscures awareness. We no longer recognize the changes that are happening because we are too busy with thoughts of hatred, desire, or something similar. If you are an untrained person, this situation may continue indefinitely, but as a meditator, you will recognize what is happening. It is mindfulness that recognizes this change, then tries to sustain itself longer to prevent the obstacle from returning. Thus, mindfulness is a special antidote for the hindrances. It is both used to treat and to prevent them. Full and sustained mindfulness is a state of complete absence of attachment to anything in the world. If we can maintain this state, no hindrance can obstruct our progress toward liberation from human flaws. Mindfulness is not external awareness. It observes events at a deeper level beneath concepts and viewpoints. This profound observation leads to a certainty that leaves no room for doubt. It manifests itself as a steadfast, unwavering focus that never falters and never becomes negligent. This pure, clear observation not only keeps obstacles at bay, but also exposes their structures and gradually destroys them. Mindfulness neutralizes the pollutants in the mind. Result will be a mind that is untainted and unscathed, completely unaffected by the ups and downs of life. Mindfulness, compared to concentration. Vipassana meditation is the practice of balancing the mind. You will cultivate two distinct qualities of the mind, mindfulness and concentration. Ideally, both work together as a pair, always supporting each other. Therefore, it is most important to develop both simultaneously and keep them balanced. If either becomes stronger, the weaker one pays the price for the imbalance, and the balance of the mind is lost, preventing the practice from being effective. Concentration and mindfulness have two distinct functions. They play separate roles in meditation, and the relationship between the two is defined to the finest degree. Concentration is often referred to as one-pointedness of mind. It involves the act of keeping the mind fixed on a single point continuously, without interruption. Remember the word keeping. Concentration is almost like an act of forcing. It can be strengthened through relentless training purely by willpower. Once strengthened, it can be maintained by this very act of forcing. Mindfulness, on the other hand, is a skillful function, gradually refining the sensitivity of awareness. These are the two partners in the work of meditation. Mindfulness is the sensitive partner, responsible for recognizing things, while concentration is the partner that provides the power, holding attention tightly on one point. Ideally, mindfulness selects the object for attention, recognizing when attention strays from the object. Concentration is the one that forces attention to stay on the object chosen by mindfulness. If either partner weakens, fails to do their job effectively, the entire meditation process becomes ineffective. Concentration can be defined as a mental feature that can focus on a single object without interruption. It is important to emphasize here that true concentration is a wholesome state of mind, fully focused on one point, unaffected by desire, aversion, or ignorance. There is also a state of mind focused on a single point that is not wholesome, and it will not lead to liberation. You can still have a concentrated mind in craving, but it will not lead you anywhere. Constant concentration on something you dislike will not help you at all. In fact, the ability to concentrate unwholesomely does not last long, especially when used to harm others. Genuine concentration is inherently unpolluted, a mental state that is unified with great power and intensity. Using a lens as an example here, parallel sun rays shining down on a sheet of paper will not cause any damage other than making the paper slightly warm. But the same amount of sunlight directed through a lens, focused on one point, can cause the paper to burn. Concentration is the lens, creating the necessary intensity to see through the deepest layers of the mind. Mindfulness selects the object for the lens to focus on and see through to what is there. Concentration should be used as a tool, and a tool can be used to produce both good and bad results. A sharp knife can be used to carve a beautiful sculpture or harm a person, depending on who wields the knife. The ability to concentrate is similar. Used correctly, can help you get closer to liberation, but it can also be used to serve the ego. It can function according to patterns of success and competition. It can use concentration to control others, to satisfy selfish desires. The basic problem is that concentration alone will not reveal your true state. It does not shed light on fundamental issues like selfishness and the nature of suffering. Concentration can be used to delve into the deep layers of psychological states, but even then, pressure of the ego cannot be fully understood. Only mindfulness can do that. Without mindfulness present to see through the lens, to observe what is being exposed, the display becomes useless. Only mindfulness brings understanding. Only mindfulness brings wisdom. Concentration also has many other limitations. Deep concentration, samadhi, can only occur under special conditions. Buddhists go through great effort to establish meditation centers and monasteries. Their main purpose is to create an undisturbed environment for practitioners to learn these abilities. No noise, no interruption, and no less important is the absence of psychological disturbances. Developing concentration abilities will be limited by the appearance of the 5 hindrances. They are sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, and doubt. We discussed these mental states in detail in Chapter 12. A monastery is a place where external conditions are arranged to minimize distractions as much as possible. No members of the opposite sex are allowed to live together here, so there is very little opportunity for craving to arise. Personal possessions are not accepted here. Prevent petty disputes and minimize the chances for greed to arise. It's also worth mentioning the ideas that go beyond the stages of cultivating concentration. In deep concentration, profound absorption, you become highly merged with the meditation object, making you forget everything else, such as your body, your identity, and everything around you. Once again, the monastery is a useful tool. It's comforting to know that someone is taking care of mundane things like food and safety, allowing the meditator to delve deeply into profound states of concentration. Mindfulness, on the other hand, is not hindered by any obstacles. It is not dependent on any particular conditions. Mindfulness is simply a factor of awareness. Therefore, it freely observes whatever arises, whether it's craving, jealousy, or noise. Mindfulness is not limited by circumstance. It exists within each moment in the context in which it arises. Mindfulness does not have a fixed object, but is always changing. So its object of attention is unlimited. It simply observes whatever passes through the mind without categorizing it. Distractions and interruptions are noted with the same level of attention as the primary meditation object. In a state of pure mindfulness, your attention simply aligns with the changes occurring in the mind. Change, 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 now this and now this. You cannot develop mindfulness by force. Effort expressed through gritting your teeth won't help you. In fact, it hinders progress. Mindfulness cannot be cultivated through struggle. It grows by recognizing, letting go, settling into the present, and being at ease with what you are experiencing. This doesn't mean that mindfulness develops on its own, quite the opposite. It requires a great deal of energy and effort. But it is effort that is gentle, not physical exertion. Mindfulness is nurtured by gentle effort without strain. The meditator cultivates mindfulness by gently, repeatedly reminding themselves to maintain awareness of whatever is happening. Perseverance and gentle self-reminding are the keys. Mindfulness is nurtured by continuously bringing oneself back to a state of awareness. Gently, gently, gently. Mindfulness cannot be used selfishly. It is selfless awareness. There is no I in a state of pure mindfulness. Therefore, there is no ego for selfishness. On the contrary, mindfulness provides a true perspective of yourself, allowing your mind to step back from desire and aversion so you can observe them and say, this is my true self. In a state of mindfulness, you see yourself exactly as you are. You see your selfish behavior, your suffering, and how you have caused suffering. You also see how you have caused suffering to others. You cut through the layers of lies you often tell yourself about what you really think or see there. Mindfulness leads to wisdom. Mindfulness is not about trying to achieve anything. It is simply about observing. Therefore, desire and aversion cannot be involved. Competition and striving for success have no place in this process. Mindfulness is not aimed at anything. It simply observes whatever is there. Mindfulness is a broader and more inclusive function than concentration. It encompasses all function. Concentration is specific, focusing on one thing and ignoring the rest. Mindfulness is inclusive, standing apart from the point of focus, observing with a wide field of attention, and swiftly noting any changes that occur. You are focused on a rock? Concentration will only see the rock. But mindfulness stands nearby, paying attention to the rock, aware of the mind, concentrating on the rock, knowing the intensity of that concentration, and instantly recognizing if the attention strays from the rock. It is mindfulness that recognizes the distraction and brings the attention back to the rock. Mindfulness is harder to cultivate than concentration, as it operates on a deeper level. Concentration targets the mind like a beam of radiation, with the power to burn, shooting straight into the mind to illuminate what is there, but it does not understand what it sees. Mindfulness can examine the structure of the self and comprehend what it sees. It can pierce the mysteries of suffering and the mechanisms of anxiety and depression. Mindfulness can lead you to freedom, but there is another dilemma. Mindfulness does not react to what it sees, simply observes and learns. It is the nature of patience. Therefore, what you see must be simply accepted and observed without bias. This is not easy but is very necessary to achieve comprehensively. We are foolish, selfish, greedy, boastful, full of desires, and deceitful. That is the truth. Mindfulness means seeing these truths and being patient with yourself, accepting yourself as you are. This seems contrary to our nature because we often refuse to accept, instead always denying, changing, or justifying ourselves. This happens whether due to boredom, anger, fear, weakness, flaws, or faults. Whatever it is how we operate as humans, and that is the truth. Mindfulness simply accepts whatever is present. If you want to develop mindfulness, the only way is to patiently accept. Mindfulness only grows in one direction, by continuously practicing mindfulness and simply making the effort to pay attention, which also means being patient. This process cannot be forced or rushed. It has its own pace. Mindfulness and concentration cooperate and support each other in the work of meditation. Mindfulness guides the energy of concentration and is the director of the process. Concentration provides the energy for mindfulness to penetrate the deepest recesses of the mind. This cooperation results in the ability to understand hidden truths and gain insight. These two functions must be cultivated together and in balanced proportion. Just a little more emphasis should be placed on mindfulness, as it is the core of meditation. Deep concentration is not truly necessary for the process of liberation, but moderate concentration is still essential. Excessive awareness without the calmness to balance it can lead to a hypersensitivity similar to drug abuse. Intense concentration without being balanced by awareness can lead to the statue Buddha syndrome, where the meditator becomes so calm that they sit there like a stone. These two states must be avoided. The initial stages of mental cultivation are particularly delicate. Emphasizing mindfulness at this stage will only slow the development of concentration. When you first start meditating, the first task is to accurately note how the mind is functioning at that moment. The Theravada Buddhist tradition calls this phenomenon the monkey mind. The Tibetan Vajrayana tradition compares it to a waterfall of thoughts. If you emphasize awareness at this stage, there will be too much to notice for concentration to develop, making it impossible. Don't be discouraged. This phenomenon happens to everyone, and there is a simple solution. Concentrate all your effort on a single point at the beginning, continuously bringing the wandering mind back again and again. Be firm with it. The entire method for doing this is explained in chapters 7 and 8. After just a few months of proper practice, you will develop enough concentration power. Then you can begin applying that power to mindfulness. But don't go too far with concentration, lest you fall into a state of dullness. Mindfulness remains more important than concentration. It should be cultivated whenever you feel ready. It provides the necessary foundation for the development of deep concentration later. Most errors in balance will naturally correct themselves over time. Right concentration naturally follows sustained mindfulness. The more you develop awareness, the quicker you will catch distractions and bring the mind back to the meditation object. The natural result is increased concentration. As concentration develops, it will help develop mindfulness. The stronger the concentration, the less likely distractions will occur. You simply note the distraction and then bring the attention back to the primary object. Thus, the two factors tend to balance and support each other to grow naturally. There seems to be only one necessary principle to follow here. Focus your effort on concentration at the beginning until the monkey mind settles down a bit. Then shift your focus to mindfulness. If you find yourself agitated, focus on concentration. If you find yourself falling into dullness, shift your focus to mindfulness. On a conceptual level, speaking generally, mindfulness is the aspect that should receive more attention. Mindfulness guides the development of meditation because it has the ability to pay attention to itself. It is mindfulness that gives you awareness of your practice. It tells you how your practice is going, but don't worry too much about this. This is not a race. You are not competing with anyone, and there is no time limit. The hardest thing when learning mindfulness is not relying on any particular mental state or feeling. We already have certain images of meditation. A quiet person working silently in some cave, moving slowly. These are just training conditions. They are built to nurture concentration and teach mindfulness. Once you have learned this skill, you can mix it with other training limitations to suit your circumstance. You don't have to move at a snail's pace to have mindfulness. You don't even need calmness. While solving advanced calculus problems, you can still be mindful. Even while watching an intense football match, you can maintain mindfulness, or even in the midst of a raging, intense anger. Psychological and physical activities do not hinder mindfulness. If you find your mind in an extremely active state, just simply observe the nature and intensity of that activity. It's just part of the performance passing through your mind. Meditation in daily life. A musician expresses thoughts through sound. When you first start learning the piano, that's the concept you have to learn, and you always use scales. Even the best concert pianists in the world still have to use scales. It is a fundamental skill that cannot be discarded. Every baseball player practices hitting. It's also the first thing you learn in Little League, and you never stop practicing. In the Olympics, baseball games still start with hitting practice. Fundamental skills must always be sharpened. Meditation is the forum for meditators to practice fundamental skills for themselves. The game that the meditator participates in is the experience of their life, and the tools the meditator uses are the components of perception. Even seasoned meditators continue to meditate because it helps them adjust and hone the fundamental skills they always need for the game. But we must never forget that a meditation session is not the game itself. It is practice. The game is where those fundamental skills are applied, which is the remainder of your life's experience. Meditation that is not applied to daily life is useless and very limited. The purpose of Vipassana meditation is nothing less than the complete and permanent transformation of your entire world of sensations and perceptions. It means revolutionizing your life experience. Meditation sessions are time set aside for the process of instilling new mental habits. You learn new ways to receive and understand sensations. Then build proper behaviors aligned with the Dharma toward perceptions and thoughts, establishing a new approach for dealing with the emotions constantly pouring out of your mind. This new behavior will be applied to the rest of your life. If not, meditation is just dry theory, useless for life and irrelevant to the world. The effort to link these two areas, practice and real life, is very important. Some progress will happen immediately. The whole process will form very slowly and cannot be precisely determined. You may feel that you're getting nowhere and might give up because it doesn't seem to bring any clear benefits. One of the unforgettable phenomena in your meditation practice may be the moment you realize that you're meditating right in the midst of ordinary activities. Whether you're driving on the highway or taking out the trash, practice automatically kicks in. This unplanned, self-revealing skill that you've nurtured over time is a genuine joy. It opens a small window into the future for you. At that moment, you catch a glimpse of what the practice truly means. That potential strikes you with the realization that this transformation in awareness could become a permanent function of your experience. You then realize that you could actually live the rest of your days on the sidelines of those obsessive, debilitating, noisy thoughts. That you're no longer frantically chasing after what you want or crave. You just lightly touch what happens, enough to stand aside and watch it pass by. That is a magical moment you'll never forget. However, that vision may never become a reality unless you actively seek to promote the entire process. The most important moment in meditation is the moment you leave the meditation seat. After the meditation session is over, you can either stand up and leave everything behind, or bring these skills into the activities of the rest of your life. It's very important to understand what meditation is. It's not just special sitting postures or mental exercises. Meditation is the cultivation of mindfulness and the application of that mindfulness once it is understood. You don't need to be sitting to meditate. You can practice while washing dishes, taking a shower, ice skating, typing. Meditation is awareness and must be applied to every aspect of life. This is not easy. We specifically cultivate awareness through sitting in a quiet place because it's the easiest environment to do this. But practicing meditation in action is much more difficult. Meditating in the midst of chaos is even harder, and meditating in the throes of intense selfish activities, like romantic emotions or an argument, is the ultimate challenge. Beginners are often overwhelmed by less stressful activities, so we don't need to mention those extreme states. But the ultimate goal of practice remains to build within oneself the ability to concentrate and maintain awareness at a level that remains unshaken even under the pressures of life in this modern society. Life presents many challenges, and serious meditators rarely give up. Integrating meditation into daily activities is not a simple process. Try it, and you'll see. The transition from the moment you leave meditation to re-entering life is indeed a big leap. For most of us, it's often too long. We find that the calmness and concentration quickly evaporate within a few minutes, leaving us in an even worse state than before we started meditating. To bridge this gap, the Buddha devised practical methods aimed at easing this transition. 1. Walking meditation. Our daily lives are full of activities and movement. Sitting completely still for hours seems contradictory to normal experience. The stillness and clarity that we cultivate in absolute quiet tend to dissipate as soon as we start moving. We need some exercises to help transition. Teach ourselves to maintain calm and focus even while in motion. Walking meditation helps us transform daily life into a form of rest. Walking meditation is often used as an alternative to sitting meditation. Walking is especially beneficial when you are extremely agitated. An hour of walking meditation can often release uncontrollable energy while still producing significant clarity. Afterward, you can sit and meditate with much greater benefit. Dedicated Buddhists always support regular retreats to supplement daily meditation sessions. A retreat is relatively long, with most of the time devoted to sitting meditation. 1 or 2 day retreats are very popular among lay Buddhists. Senior practitioners living in monasteries might spend several months on intensive meditation without doing anything else. Such rigorous practice requires a high level of physical and mental endurance. Unless you've practiced for many years, it's wise to limit how long your meditation sessions are for the best result. 10 continuous hours of sitting will create immense suffering for new meditators, as it far exceeds their ability to concentrate. Therefore, a successful retreat must combine sitting and walking, arranged alternately. An hour for each method is commonly applied. For walking meditation, you need a quiet place with enough space for about 5 to 10 steps in a straight line. You will walk back and forth very slowly, and to the Western eye, you will appear entirely strange, completely different from ordinary people. This is not a training exercise you want to do in your front yard, where it might attract unnecessary attention. Choose a secluded spot. The instructions are very simple. Choose an open area. At a starting point, stand still with full attention for a minute. You can keep your hands in any comfortable position, the front, behind, or down at your sides. Then, as you inhale, lift the heel of one foot. As you exhale, rest that foot on your toes. Next, as you inhale, lift that foot and move it forward. Then as you exhale, place that foot on the ground. Repeat with the other foot. Walk very slowly to the end of the path. Stand still for a minute. Turn around slowly. Stand still for another minute, and then walk back. Continue this cycle. Keep your neck and head relaxed. Keep your eyes open and balanced without darting around or fixating on a particular spot. Walk naturally. Maintain the slowest pace that brings serenity, and don't pay attention to the surroundings. Notice any rising tension in your body and relax as you feel it. Don't try to appear graceful or perfect. This is not a performance or a dance. It's a practice in awareness. Your goal is to achieve comprehensive alertness, keen and heightened sensitivity, so as not to overlook the experiences of each step. Focus all your attention on the sensations originating from your legs and feet, observing as much as possible the movement of each foot. Immerse yourself in the pure sensation of walking and feel the subtle sensations in every movement. Try to sense each muscle as it moves. Experience every tiny change of feeling as your foot touches and leaves the ground. Observe the entire process of walking continuously as a series of small vibrations linked together. Try not to miss anything. To enhance sensitivity, you can break down the movement into several distinct parts. Each foot goes through phases, lifting, moving forward, and placing down. Each distinct part has a beginning, middle, and end. To attune yourself to this process, you can clearly note each phase. Make notes like lifting, moving forward, placing down, touching the ground, pressing down, etc. This practice is to familiarize yourself with the flow of movement and not miss any details. Once you become more aware of the myriad subtle changes occurring, you won't have time for words anymore. You'll find yourself immersed in the continuous flow of mindful movement. Your feet will become an entire world. If your mind wanders, simply note the distraction as you usually would and bring your attention back to walking. Never look at your feet while observing these phases, and don't walk backward to check the mental image of your legs and feet. Don't think, just feel. You don't need concepts of feet or images, just focus on the sensations as they move. At first, you might struggle to maintain balance. You're using the muscles in your legs in a new way, and it's always like this during practice. If frustration arises, simply note it and let it go. Walking meditation is used to flood the consciousness with pure sensation, done so perfectly that everything else is left aside. There's no room for thoughts and feelings to interfere. No time for attachments or for pausing the practice to let conceptual sequences arise. There's no need for the ego's evaluation or judgment. Only the sensation of motion and contact remains, an unceasing and ever-changing stream of raw experience. Here, we learn how to transcend concepts to enter into truth, not to escape it. The insights gained will directly apply to the rest of your life. 2. Posture. Purpose of practice is to become fully aware of every aspect of experience, uninterrupted by the passage of time. Most of what we do and experience happens without awareness, with little or no attention. Our minds are elsewhere. We live in such a way that we waste almost all our time in a passive state, lost in the fog of daydreams and out of control. So practice is essential for us. One of the areas of life we often neglect is our bodies. Ceaseless movies, daydreams playing out in our heads are so captivating and engaging that we stop paying attention to internal sensations and physical forces. Those data flood into the nervous system and the brain every second, but we block them from entering consciousness, so they go into the lower levels of the mind and stay there, unable to go further. Buddhism has established an exercise to open this floodgate and let the data flow through the mind. It's a method to achieve unconscious awareness. Our bodies endure countless physiological pressures every day: standing, sitting, walking, lying down, bending, running, jumping, crawling. The teachers sincerely advise you to become aware of this constant, unceasing transformation. During daily activities, you should take a few seconds every few minutes to examine your body's posture. But don't do this in a judgmental way, evaluating how you're doing. This is not an exercise to correct posture or improve external appearance. Bring your attention throughout the entire body to feel how you're doing, whether you're mindful or not. Silently note: walking, sitting, lying down, or standing. It may sound silly, but please don't underestimate this method. This practice holds very significant value. If you use it well, truly absorbing this habit deeply, it can revolutionize your experience. It will take you into a new dimension of sensation, making you feel like someone who was blind and has regained sight. 3. Slow down activities. Every action you take is made up of many small, connected parts. Even tying a shoelace is composed of a continuous sequence of small movement. These details may seem impossible to observe fully. To encourage the habit of establishing comprehensive mindfulness, you can carry out activities at a slower pace, trying to pay full attention to even the most mundane actions. Sitting at the table to drink a cup of tea is an example. There's a lot to experience here. Carefully observe your posture while sitting and the sensation of your fingers holding the cup. Smell the aroma of the tea. Note the placement of the cup, tea leaves, your arm, and the table. Observe the intention in your mind to raise your hand. Feel your arm lift, feel the cup touching your lips, and the tea flowing into your mouth. Taste the tea, then observe the intention arising to lower your hand. The entire process is truly fascinating and beautiful if you fully engage with it, paying objective attention to each sensation, thought, and feeling. This strategy can be applied to other daily activities. Intentionally slow down thoughts, speech, and actions so that you have enough time to delve deeper into them than before. What you discover will be astonishing. Initially, it's challenging to keep everything intentionally slow consistently, but this skill will improve over time. The deep understanding that occurs in meditation will become apparent when we truly examine the activities of the mind in daily life. This is a laboratory where we can truly see the machinery that creates our emotions and the operation of our powerful feelings. Here, we can measure the reliability of the causes of our actions, catching the subtle difference between the real motive and the false facade we've been using to deceive ourselves and others. We will be amazed by these findings, which are often troublesome but very beneficial. Your attention brings order to the chaos that has been accumulated and messily hidden in a small corner of the mind. When you achieve clear comprehension in the midst of ordinary daily activities, you gain the skill to maintain alertness and peace while shining the light of mindfulness into every nook and cranny of your mind. You begin to see the extent of suffering within the realm of your responsibility. You see the misfortune, fear, and tension that you have caused yourself. You see how you have created your own suffering, weaknesses, and limitations. The deeper you understand this mental creation process, the less it controls you. 4. Regulating the breath. In sitting meditation, the most important object is the breath. Full concentration on the ever-changing breath keeps us facing the present moment. This principle can also be used in the midst of movement. You can integrate your activities with your breathing. This helps synchronize your movements and smooth out fragmented transitions. Actions become easier to focus on, and mindfulness increases. Your awareness thus remains more easily in the present moment. Ideally, meditation is a practice for 24 hours a day. This is a highly practical suggestion. Mindfulness is a state of enthusiastic awareness. The mind is not burdened with worries or leaping around in anxiety. Whatever arises can be addressed immediately. When truly mindful, your nervous system is fresh and flexible, nourishing wisdom. When a problem arises, you simply align with it quickly, appropriately, and with the least disturbance. You don't hesitate or retreat to a secluded corner to brood over it. You simply face it. In the rare cases where a solution to the problem seems impossible, you won't worry about it. You simply move on to the next issue that needs your attention. Your intuition becomes a very practical function. 5. Lost time. Wasting time is a concept that doesn't exist for a serious meditator. Even a little dead time during the day can become useful. Any idle moment can be used for meditation. Sitting anxiously in the dentist's office? Meditate on that anxiety. Feeling irritated while waiting at the bank? Meditate on that irritation. Bored, twiddling your thumbs at the bus stop? Meditate on that boredom. Try to stay alert and attentive throughout the day. Mindfully acknowledge exactly what is happening now, even the tedious struggle. Make the most of every moment alone or in the midst of biological activities, using every idle moment for mindfulness, making the most of all available time if possible. 6. Focusing on all activities. You should strive to maintain mindfulness in every activity and awareness throughout the day, from the first moment you wake up to the last thought before you go to sleep. This is the ultimate goal that can be set. Never expect to accomplish this quickly. Take it slowly and allow your ability to develop over time. The most reasonable way to practice this is to divide your daily life into sections. Dedicate specific periods to mindfulness, then extend that mindfulness to other activities like eating, washing dishes, getting dressed, etc. Occasionally during the day, spend about 15 minutes observing specific states of mind, such as pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral feelings, like the hindrances, desire, aversion, sloth, restlessness, and doubt or thoughts. The frequency depends on you. The intention is to practice detecting different events and maintaining mindfulness as much as possible throughout the day. Strive to complete this regularly without feeling much difference between sitting meditation and the rest of your experience. Let them blend together. Your body is almost never still. There is always some movement to observe, at the very least, your breathing. Your mind never stops chattering, except in deep concentration. There is always something arising to observe. If you apply your practice seriously, you won't lose the value that awareness brings. Your practice must be applied to daily life situations. This is your laboratory. Life provides the testing ground and challenges you need to deepen and refine your practice. It is the fire used to purify falsehoods and errors on your path. Kind of acid test to see how far you've come and when you're deceiving yourself. If meditation does not help you deal with conflicts and struggles in life, it is still shallow. If your emotional responses do not become clearer and easier to manage daily, you're wasting your time practicing. You're not practicing correctly. You never know how much you're progressing until you're truly challenged in life. Mindfulness practice is a practical exercise. You don't practice occasionally and then put it aside for the rest of the time, but rather you practice continuously at all time. Successful meditation happens only when you burst open the partially developed soundproof wall. Wisdom practice is the practice of mindfulness in every moment. The meditator learns to establish pure attention to the arising, enduring, and passing away of all phenomena in the mind, not being bound or escaping from observation. Thoughts, feelings, activities, and desires, the entire performance the meditator watches, all of it continuously. Whether it's lovely or terrifying, beautiful or shameful, the meditator sees it as it is, and as it changes. No aspect of experience is neglected or avoided. This is a continuous and comprehensive process. In daily activities, if you find yourself falling into a state of boredom, meditate on that boredom. Explore how it feels, how it operates, and how it is structured. You get angry, observe the anger. Explore the structure of the anger. Don't run away from it. If you find yourself in the dark grip of depression, investigate that depression. Examine it with a sense of observation and detachment. Don't blindly run away from it. Explore the labyrinth and map out all its pathways. That way, you'll be better equipped to deal with the depressions that will arise later. Practicing through the ups and downs of life is the essential viewpoint of insight meditation. This type of practice is very rigorous and demanding, but it also results in a highly flexible mind that goes far beyond the relative dualistic realm. The meditator has an open mind in every moment, continuously observing life, monitoring personal experience, and viewing life non-possessively and non-intrusively. Therefore, the meditator is always open to whatever form of truth, from anywhere, at any time. This is the state of mind one needs to attain liberation. As mentioned, one can attain enlightenment at any moment if the mind is kept in a state of wakefulness. Any small, ordinary perception can be the trigger. Seeing the moon, hearing a bird's call, the sound of the wind through the trees. Whatever it is doesn't matter, but the manner in which you pay attention to that deep understanding does. State of wakefulness is crucial. It can happen right now if you're ready. The feeling of your fingers holding this book could be the signal. The sound of the words in your head could trigger enlightenment. You could achieve enlightenment right now if you're ready. What meditation offers you. You can expect certain benefits from meditation. What you gain in the early stages may be dull and practical. Later stages are deeper and more transcendent. They follow one another from the simplest, the greatest. We will outline a few things here, but ultimately it is your own experience that matters. These things we often call hindrances or defilements are worse than unpleasant states of mind. They usually manifest through the expression of the ego. The essence of the ego is a clear sense of separation, perception of the gap between what we call me and not me. This perception is only stopped when continuously examined, and these hindrances are established because of that examination. Desire and craving are schemes to acquire something for me. Aversion and hatred are schemes for me to avoid those things. All those defilements depend on the perception of the barrier between the ego and others, and all of those things feed the awareness each time they are trained. Mindfulness perceives things deeply, with clear clarity, brings our attention to the roots of defilements, and exposes the most fundamental structure. Mindfulness also sees the outcomes and impacts of these consequences on us. It is never deceived. Once you see clearly what desire is and the harm it brings you, you naturally won't want to cling to it anymore. When a child gets burned by touching a hot stove, you don't have to tell them to pull their hand away. They do it instinctively, without thinking or deciding. Reflex actions are built into the nervous system for this purpose, and they operate faster than thought. By the time the child feels the heat, they're already crying, and their arm has already pulled back. Mindfulness works similarly, without words, instantly, and completely effectively. Clear mindfulness will restrain hindrances from developing. Continuous mindfulness has the ability to extinguish them. Therefore, as true mindfulness is cultivated, the walls of the ego will crumble, ambition will be destroyed, defensiveness and rigidity will lessen, and you become more open, accepting, and adaptable. This is also how you learn to share your loving kindness. Traditionally, the sages were reluctant to speak about the ultimate existence of human life. For those who are sincerely eager, it is said that the ultimate truth, or Buddha nature, is pure, sacred, and inherently pure. The only reason life differs is that the experience of that ultimate truth is hidden, suppressed like water held back behind a dam. Hindrances are the bricks used to build that dam. When mindfulness dissolves those bricks, creating holes through the dam, then the joy of compassion and empathy flows freely. As mindfulness becomes continuous, your life changes. The stream of experience rises with intensity. Feeling merges with awareness. Everything becomes clear and precise, and you no longer lose focus on worries. Mindfulness becomes a continuous, uninterrupted subject of awareness. Each moment passes by distinctly as a unit. Time intervals no longer blend into a state of fog. Nothing is hidden or implied, and no experience is considered ordinary anymore. Each event shines brightly and uniquely. You avoid categorizing your experiences through the gaps in your mind. Descriptions and interpretations are set aside, and each moment speaks for itself. You truly hear what it wants to say, and you hear it as if it's the first time you've ever heard it. As your practice becomes more influential, it also becomes more stable. You observe continuously with pure awareness, both your breath and every mental phenomenon at the same time. You feel an increased sense of balance, as if anchored in the ordinary, simple experience of each moment of life. When the mind is no longer controlled by thoughts, it becomes clear, alert, and peaceful, in pure, complete awareness. This awareness cannot be adequately described because language is limited. It can only be experienced. The breath stops being just the breath. It is no longer confined to the fixed, familiar concepts you once relied on. You no longer see it as the continuation of inhaling and exhaling. It is no longer a small and dull experience, but becomes a living, ever-changing, and captivating process. It is no longer something that occupies time. It is the essence of the present moment. Time then becomes a concept, not a real experience anymore. This simple, elementary awareness strips away all auxiliary details, binding to the stream of the present moment, and is stamped by the truth being revealed. You absolutely know that this is the truth, truer than anything you have ever experienced before. Once you have this realization with absolute certainty, you gain a new advantage, a new standard by which to measure all your experiences. Following this realization, you either clearly perceive these moments as you immerse yourself in each phenomenon, or you disturb it with your mind's attitude. You notice how you distort reality with mental commentary, old images, and personal biases. You become aware of what you're doing and when you're doing it. You become more sensitive to how you've missed the truth, and then shift to simpler perceptions without any alterations. You become a very knowledgeable person. From this vantage point, everything becomes evident. You mindfully observe the breath constantly arising and passing away. Follow the endless stream of bodily sensations and movements. You skim through the swift succession of thoughts and feelings, discovering the rhythmic echo of the steady flow of time. Amid this continuous movement, there is no observer, only observation. In this state of understanding, no two moments are alike. Everything is evidently in a state of continuous change. All things are born, grow, and decay without exception. You awaken to the ceaseless change in your life. You look around and see that everything is in flux. Everything. All things arise and fall, increase and decrease, appear and fade away. All life, from the smallest details to the vastest entities like the Indian Ocean, is in an endless process of transformation. You come to understand the entire universe as nothing more than a vast river of experiences. The great joy you once found in possessing things has vanished, and so has the life you once knew. But this impermanent change is not a cause for sorrow. You stand there in amazement, watching the continuous sequence of activities and responding to them with a strange delight. Everything is moving, dancing, and full of life. As you continue to observe these changes and see how everything is interconnected, you become fascinated by the close relationship between all states of mind, sensations, and emotions. You watch one thought lead to the next, see the decay giving rise to emotional reactions and feelings, which in turn lead to the emergence of more thoughts. Actions, thoughts, feelings, and desires. You see it all, intricately interconnected in a fine, smooth fabric of cause and effect. You observe pleasant experiences arising and falling away, realizing they never last. You witness pain arriving uninvited and see yourself anxiously struggling to rid yourself of it, failing to succeed. All of this happens repeatedly as you stand on the sidelines in quiet contemplation, watching it all unfold. Outside this vibrant laboratory lies the irrefutable inner conclusion. You see your life marked by disappointment and frustration, and you clearly see its origins. These reactions stem from your inability or even powerlessness to obtain what you desire, your fear of losing what you already have, and your never-ending habit of feeling insufficient. These are no longer theoretical concepts. You've seen and known them as real. You also recognize your fears, the deepest insecurity, when facing the issues of life and death. This tension is deeply ingrained in the roots of your thinking and creates many difficulties in life. You observe yourself fumbling anxiously with everything, grasping at many things in fear, holding on to them tightly as they slip away from your hands like sand through your fingers. You realize that nothing can serve as a stable anchor. Nothing is unchanging. You witness the pain caused by loss and suffering. Observe yourself being suppressed as you adjust to the growing pain of daily life. You bear witness to the inherent tension and conflict within the process of life and your true face of hypocrisy when showing kindness during the day. You follow the process of pain, illness, aging, and death. You are amazed that all these dreadful things are not fearful at all. They are simply a part of life. Through this thorough examination of the negative aspects of life, you become deeply familiar with suffering, the inherent dissatisfaction of all beings. You begin to understand suffering at every level of existence, from the microscopic to the most subtle. You see the unavoidable process of suffering following attachment. The moment you grasp something, suffering inevitably follows. Once you become familiar with the entire mechanism of desire, you become sensitive to it. You see where it arises, the moment it appears, and how it affects you. You watch it operate over and over, manifesting through the senses, controlling your mind, and turning your consciousness into its slave. Amid pleasant experiences, you observe your craving and the attachment that occurs. As unpleasant experiences arise, you witness the power of resistance taking shape. Don't try to block these phenomena, just observe them, see them as the garbage of human thought. You discover that what we call self is nothing more than a physical body with a self-assigned identity, just a bag of skin covering bones. Looking further, you see the behavior of all phenomena such as emotions, thought patterns, and perceptions, and then notice how the label of ego is attached to each one. You observe yourself crazily trying to possess, protect, and guard against losing these empty things. You've been endlessly scouring for these things, material goods, physical sensations, passions, and emotions, tirelessly. All of these have swirled around you, causing you to retreat into corners, ceaselessly searching to serve the eye. You see nothing at all. In all the collections accumulated over a lifetime of relentless struggle, you can see that they were obtained through countless inhumane tricks and schemes. But you don't find a fixed self. It's all just a process. You can see thoughts, but no thinker. You can see emotions and desires, but no one who desires. The nature of the house is empty, and no one is inside. Your entire human view of self is completely altered at this moment. You start seeing yourself as a photographer. When looking at a photograph with the naked eye, you see a clear image, But through a magnifying glass, that photo becomes a complex configuration of many dots. Similarly, under the penetrating gaze of mindfulness, the sense of self, the I or being, loses its foundation and becomes fragmented. You then reach a point in the wisdom realization where the three ultimate truths, impermanence, dissatisfaction, and non-self, have the most powerful impact, annihilating the relative concept. You clearly experience the impermanence of life, the suffering of existence, and the truth of non-self. These characteristics become so vivid that you suddenly awaken to the futility of desire, attachment, and resistance. In this moment of enlightenment, your consciousness is transformed. The self dissolves, leaving only an eternal, selfless phenomenon that the relative concept cannot invade. Desire is extinguished, and you are no longer burdened. What remains is a flowing life without tension or resistance. This is the peace and happiness of nirvana, which is neither born nor destroyed,